Hello, everyone. Okay, can do better than that. Let's try it again. Namaskar. Come on, you have to be deafening. Let's try it again. Namaskar, everyone. Fantastic. Okay, so it's a huge honor for me to be here. I'm very grateful that I was invited here. Thank you so much. And of course, it's been superbly enlightening the last couple of days. Today has been absolutely amazing. Thank you for your wonderful presentation, sirs. Really, really inspiring. And a big round of applause to all the speakers who have spoken these last couple of days. Now, of course, as all of you all know through the beautiful introduction that Rohini gave all of you, I'm a musician. And at the same time, I am a conservationist. All my music is about the environment and about conservation. So to give you context, to give context to what I'm going to be speaking about, I'll speak a little bit about my journey getting here. So again, as I said, music, conservation, two pillars that have dictated and described my entire life. All my life decisions have been based on these two tenets. And even as a child, when most of my classmates in school were very fascinated by their television screens and, they were fascinated by playing video games and cartoons. For me, my ears were always more important than my eyes. So so while my friends were hooked onto the television screens, I was always hooked onto my music system. I would listen to what used to be during those days cassette tapes. How many of you all know what a cassette tape is right now? So anyway, I used to listen to cassette tapes, and I would listen to these various bands and musicians from all over the world. I would get inspired by them. I would try to decipher every song and try to figure out what are the musical instruments in every song, what is the guitar player thinking while he or she is actually playing the guitar, what are the different cultures through music. So most of my education was actually through music. And at the same time, I found a very deep correlation between music and nature. And for me, there was no difference between music and nature. And I know it's very difficult for me to explain that to you, but it's a thought process that I went through that music and nature is one and the same. Now, a little bit of it I can explain to you why I felt that way, because now I understand the modalities of music, because at the end of the day, how did music start? Music started off as sounds within nature. Sounds of the trees, sounds of the leaves rustling, the wind, the river flowing, birds chirping, animal sounds. Then later on, music evolved as being humans trying to imitate those sounds, through either singing or through creating musical instruments from objects found within nature, like pieces of bamboo and boxes of seeds and buckets of water and things like that. And it's only for the last 400 or 500 years that music has actually gotten academic, with scales and with notes and with rags and things like that. So basically, music has come from within nature. And also as a child, I was a very weird child, admittedly, full disclosure. So I would actually look into the eyes of seemingly dangerous animals, because for me, there was no such thing as a dangerous animal and a pet animal or anything like that. All animals were my brothers and sisters, or mothers and daughters or whatever. So I would look into the eyes of a seemingly dangerous animal like, a rat or a snake, and I would look into the eyes, and I would try to see personality in all these animals. I would try to understand what are they thinking, or what kind of families they come from, what's going on in their mind right now. And I'm sure that even if you look into the eyes of any animal, you will see personality and you will see life, because they're filled with it even more than us. So that's how my childhood was spent. Now, it is in our 12th standard, as most of you all know, most of you all have been there, that we have to make a strong decision as to what we want to do for the rest of our lives. So I had made a very strong decision that I want to be a musician. I want music to be my career, my hobby, my life, my profession, my bread and butter, my everything, and I wanted to do music till the day I die. So I went to my father. Oh, no, you don't have to clap right now. You can clap a little later. So I went to my father, and very vociferously I went to him and I told him that, Dad, I want to be a musician. I want to do music for the rest of my life. I want to study music. I want to do music till the day I die. So my dad is a third generation doctor and an Indian parent. So he looked at me as if I was absolutely crazy. How many of you over here are going to be following career paths which are probably not going to be agreeable by your parents? Okay, quite a few. You guys are going to change the world. So I told my dad this. My dad looked at me as if I was absolutely crazy, and he said that, what do you mean music as a profession? I mean that if you're going to be doing music, what are you going to be doing as a profession? Because you have to have a professional degree or something like that. So then, after a lot of fighting with my parents, a lot of pushing and pulling, a lot of arguments, we reached a compromise. Now, what was that compromise? That I would have to finish off a degree in dental surgery, and once I finish off my degree, my life was my own and I could do whatever I wanted for the rest of my life. So that's exactly what I did. I went to college for 5 years. I studied dentistry. I went to college, but I did not know anything about dentistry. At the end of 5 years, I got a degree. And so that's pretty much a testimony to the current education system in India. So if you're good at something, you're good in spite of the current education system, not because of it. So anyway, I got my degree. I very ceremoniously went to my father with a lot of drama. I gave him the degree and I told him, you keep it. I'm going to be a musician. I don't even want to practice for a single day. Yeah, now you all can clap. And then, after all that drama, I had to be successful at what I was doing. So anyway, digressing a little bit, I do not blame my father for making me pursue a degree and wasting 5 years of my life getting a degree which I would never ever use, simply because I understand now that he based his decisions on fear. Fear of me failing, fear of me starving to death, fear of me not getting married into a good family, fear of what he was going to tell his relatives as to what I do for a profession. So he had all these fears, and whereas my only driving factor and my only motivating factor was passion. Now imagine if there was a situation where I lost that passion after I got the degree and I became fearful. And I became so fearful that I would just imagine that, okay, this is not a traditional career path doing music. Maybe if I open a clinic, at least I'll be able to make some money, and it's a traditional career path, and and things will be easy. So then what would happen in that kind of a situation? I would start up a clinic. I would go to that clinic from 9 o'clock in the morning to, let's say, 5 o'clock in the evening. While I'm treating patients, all that I would be thinking about is, when can I go back home and play some guitar or play something on my piano? In such a situation, would any of you like to come to me for a surgical procedure? Or for a tooth extraction? Or for me to drill a hole into one of your teeth? But I have a degree. So anyway, that's the thing. None of you would like to come to me as a patient simply because I would not be a passionate professional. I would be a very frustrated professional. So in your lives, what I would appeal to you strongly, whatever you do, be extremely passionate and achieve excellence in whatever you do, because anything below that does not matter. Yeah. So anyway, coming back to my story, I had to be successful at music, so I got down to doing commercial music in a very short span of about 12 or 13 years. Not that short a span given your ages, but given my age, a short span. In about 12 or 13 years, I managed to make more than 3,000 commercials for various brands, for brands like Levi's, Lee, Google, Microsoft, Airtel, Vodafone, Lufthansa. You name the brand, I was doing music for them, and you name their competitor, I was doing music for them. So that's how it was, and I was working so hard that I was composing sometimes 2 commercials a day for radio or television in different parts of the world, sometimes 3, sometimes 4. I was working really, really hard. And then something struck me after 12 or 13 years of doing this, that these big brands like Microsoft and Google, they have understood the power of music such that they are paying me a couple of $1,000 to compose music for their brand to drive a message of sales, because that's, at the end of the day, that's what they're using music for, to sell a product. So they have understood the power of music, so much so that they're spending a couple of $1,000 on me to create music for them, and they're spending a couple of $1 million to actually air this music on radio and television. So they have understood that music is not only a powerful language for communicating a message, which in this case is a message of sales, but also to retain that message deep into the consciousness of a listener. Like, for example, the jingles that we have learned during our childhood, the songs, the jingles on television that we learned during our childhood or the nursery rhymes are songs that we will remember till the day we die. If there are any morals through those songs, then those are the morals that will stick with us forever. And that is the power of music. Don't we agree that music is a very powerful language? Yes. So I had not understood that being a musician, and I realized that I need to understand that. And that is when, as an epiphany, I realized that every piece, I have to, first of all, completely stop doing any form of commercial music. I have to stop doing any kind of music that somebody asks me to create. And I have to ensure that every piece of music that comes out of my studio or out of my head has to be music for positive social impact and to make this world a better place for everyone and everything. And that's what started my next journey. Now, in pursuing this journey, I was a huge fan of this South African flute player, a gentleman known as Kellerman. Flute player, South Africa, multiple award-winning guy, one of Nelson Mandela's favorite musicians. So then I wanted to work with him, and it turned out to be a huge coincidence when I finally met him in Los Angeles that he was a huge fan of my music. Now, so we both decided, okay, let's collaborate, and we were wondering, well, how do we collaborate? How do we work with each other? And then came about the second coincidence, that I had just finished composing a piece of music on the ideals of peace and tolerance by our father of the nation, that is Mahatma Gandhi. And he had just finished composing a piece of music on his father of the nation, that is Nelson Mandela. And then we also realized there's a lot of cross-pollination over here because, as we all know, Mahatma Gandhi spent his formative years in South Africa, so he had South Africanness in him. Nelson Mandela was heavily inspired by the non-violence movement by Mahatma Gandhi, so he had a lot of Indianness in him. So we decided that, all right, this is the best way for us to collaborate. I'll send you my music, you add South Africanness to it. You send me your music, and I'll add Indianness to it. In this way, we spent 2.5 years. We became the best of friends. It was an amazing time period. I got married during that time to the love of my life. He had his first grandchild during that time, so we had a very close family kind of an experience. And at the end of 2.5 years, we created an album called Winds of Samsara. Now, this album, we released it, unfortunately, that's another long story. We did not release it in India simply because in India, if it's not Bollywood, you cannot release any music. But nevertheless, we released it all over the world. In USA, it reached #1 on the Billboard charts for 12 weeks. It was the highest-selling instrumental album. Thank you. It was the highest-selling instrumental album in the world for 2014, highest-played song on radio, album on radio for 2014. And then we ended up winning the Grammy Award for this album. Thank you. So these are a couple of pictures. Then started the next phase of my life, of my career. Now, after winning the Grammy Award, our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji invited my wife and me for a private meeting. Now, what I thought was going to be a 10-minute photo op, congratulations, let's take a picture with the trophy, thank you so much, ended up being an hour-long philosophical discussion where he kept telling me that I've heard of your work in conservation, I've heard of your work with the United Nations, and now that you won this big music award, why don't you dedicate your life and your art to just your one passion, that is conservation? Now, I've been doing a whole lot of work in various fields of social impact, but this was a great challenge and a great push, which I anyway wanted to get into, of just making music on my true passion, that is environmental conservation and creating awareness on climate change. Now, as a dangling carrot in front of me, he also gave me some motivation. He told me that he is going to be delivering the keynote speech at the COP21 summit in Paris. That is the famous summit. For those of you who have forgotten what that summit was, it's the one which Trump pulled out of very recently and made very famous. So anyway, he was going to be delivering the keynote speech, and he said that if you make this album and I really like it, then he said that I will launch it on the main stage of the climate change conference, and I'll make sure that every world leader across the world gets a copy of it. That was challenge enough. I left that room, thinking that this is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to dedicate my life and my art to just one thing till the day I die, that is creating a heightened sense of environmental consciousness and creating awareness on climate change. And then I made the album. It is an album called Shanti Samsara, World Music for Environmental Consciousness. It featured 500 musicians from over 40 countries, musicians from Azerbaijan, Turkey, Nepal, Senegal, South Africa. Of course, from India, we had Amitabh Bachchan, as you can see in the corner, and then we had the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra from London, Japan. Basically, every corner of the planet, wherever I could find a musician who felt strongly about conservation, I just got in touch with them, and we did this music together. It featured musicians also like Bruno Mars and a couple of others. And true to his word, our Honorable Prime Minister launched the album on the main stage of the Climate Change Conference along with the then French President, François Hollande. And this is, of course, a very heartwarming moment for me. And then I went on to performing this album at the United Nations General Assembly, the headquarters in New York, to all the world leaders on 2 occasions, in 2016 and in 2017. Thank you. So, an open invitation for everybody. This is the album. It's a 160-page book. If anybody wants a free copy, email me at music@rickykage.com. music@rickykage.com. Email me with your address, and we will send you across a free copy of this album. Thank you. And so this, I'm going to just play you a short trailer of the album.
Climate change is absolutely real. Climate change is human-induced. Climate change is affecting all of us, and our actions are affecting countries on the other side of the world. Namaste. I'm Ricky Cage, and today I'm in the spectacularly beautiful island country of Kiribati. Kiribati is suffering the most catastrophic effects of climate change. Let me show you this village which I'm standing in. It's a village that used to be thriving, it had a population, it had a beautiful culture. And let me show you what it is reduced to now because of man-made climate change. Take a look.
And for the earth, all of us, we gonna make a way.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Means a lot. So then the next phase I'm going to get into. Now, at the climate change conference where the album was launched by Honorable Prime Minister, one So there were 100, so just to tell you about the conference, there were about 193 nations present, and all of them trying to come to a consensus as to how do we bring down our carbon footprints across the world so that climate change does not become that big a deal, and we can mitigate the effects of climate change. So 193 presidents and prime ministers attended this conference, and one world leader who absolutely stood out and caught my attention was President Anote Tong of the Republic of Kiribati, and he's on the screen right now. So President Anote Tong is the president of, as I told you, Republic of Kiribati, and he went up and he gave a very short speech. All that he said, he made an appeal to all the 193 nations. He said that all you 193 nations present over here, please ensure that you pass a resolution or pass an agreement that ensures that my people of Kiribati stay above the water. So that was a very powerful statement, and it really shook me. And I'm really ashamed to say that I hadn't even heard of this country, Kiribati, let alone its disastrous fate. So of course I went back and I started reading up about Kiribati. I realized that it's in the South Pacific, 21 very low-lying atoll islands, and they are going to be the first country in the world to go completely underwater due to climate change. To illustrate to you, in the next 30 years, none of the 21 islands are going to be inhabitable, and in the next 80 years, the tallest point in any of the islands is going to be completely submerged underwater, which means that we are going to have to make our globes and our maps all over again, because the part where Kiribati is going to have to be painted blue, because it's just going to disappear from the face of the earth. Very few people even know about this country. Now I had to go over there, so I went there with the help of the United Nations, and I spent 2 weeks over there with their amazing and their beautiful people, fell in love with their culture. They've got an indigenous culture which is not available anywhere else in the world. They are amazing people. They are complete environmentalists from the heart. They do not have any carbon emissions, no industrialization. They do not take more than they can give back from the environment, but yet they are going to be the first country to go underwater for no fault of their own. Now the thing is that if all of us countries, developing nations and developed nations, could build domes around our borders and keep our carbon emissions and our pollution within our own country, then countries like Kiribati have nothing to worry about. But then it's one atmosphere, and our carbon emissions become their carbon emissions, polar ice caps melt because of the ocean level, because of the global temperatures rising. When the ocean levels rise, the first country to go is Kiribati because they are low-lying islands. So basically, they are suffering the consequences of our actions. That's exactly what's happening. So yeah, so me being a musician, I made a song over there with their locals and with their president. And their president has given a message through the song. So that's why I would love to play this song to you. And please listen to the president as he's talking to you. So first, just a couple of pictures. This is ironically a heart-shaped island in Kiribati. Beautiful, beautiful place if you can look at the waters. This is what is left of their capital. It's a city called Tarawa, an island called Tarawa. It used to be a huge island on the right side of that thin, long island. And now all that's remaining is this particular piece of land. And if you can just imagine, a 4-foot tsunami would just wipe out their entire capital. This is what's left of their other island, which used to have a thriving population. This is what's left of another island. As you can see, the island is now currently being swallowed by the water. This is me with the president, and here we have the song.
The science is very clear about climate change. Within the century, our entire nation will be underwater. As in some countries, you have a cyclone, a hurricane. Over time, the land remains there, and the water recedes. In our case, it does not. It's a disaster that doesn't go. Our reality is that we have communities who already have to relocate, left their villages. We have communities which are on the verge of doing the same thing. For us, climate change is not something that's likely to happen in the future. It is happening, we are facing it.
from the earth, children of the sun. Though we may have forgotten, her song is still sung. No need to steal what she freely gives. No need to fear when she only knows love.
I feel the pain of a mother forsaken by her children forgotten. How long till we see she is numberless,
And we are none but her,
and we will always be one heart, one heart.
I've always referred our situation as those countries on the front line, because when we fall, there'll be another front line, and that front line will keep moving back until those countries and those people who believe they will not be affected will eventually be affected, and that is the reality we are facing.
mother's love is unconditional. It's not too late, we can still make a difference.
The question that we continue to ask ourselves, what is to become of our children? How will they continue to live without that link with the land and the spirits therein? I think as human beings, we are being challenged. Should we do something about it? I believe yes. Everybody has the responsibility to do it.
So all those children that you saw in that video, if you only imagine that these children will not have the opportunity to grow up in their own country and on their own land. Because they will be refugees of a new kind, and that is climate refugees. And this is going to be far worse than what's happening with the migrant crisis. Also, what the president said is really important, that we as Kiribati are on the front line of climate change because we are low-lying islands. So we are going to fall, and when we fall, that front line is going to keep moving back until it reaches those people and those countries who felt that they would never ever be affected, and that is the reality of the situation. So anyway, coming back home, I'm going to talk about the word coexistence. Now, what does the word coexistence mean? Coexistence, when we think about the word coexistence, the only thing that comes to our mind is coexistence between Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs and Jews and Jains and different parts and between different parts and different cultures within the human race. Because somewhere along our journey of being humans, we've forgotten that we are not the only species on this planet. We are just one among millions and millions of species on this planet, and we need to live in absolute coexistence and harmony with everyone. Now, in any ancient religion, cultural text, philosophy, the word coexistence actually means living in absolute peace and absolute harmony with every single entity in this world, whether that entity is living or non-living. And that is what we mean by coexistence. In fact, the Ishavasya mantra, as translated by Mahatma Gandhi, says that every single atom in this universe has the divine in it, whether that atom goes on to building something that is living or whether that atom goes on to building something that's inanimate or non-living. And that is exactly what we need to practice through coexistence. Now, we as Indians have practiced coexistence for the longest period of time. And I'm really proud of that it's within our culture to be and live in coexistence. Now, we have, for the longest period of time, we have long revered our wildlife and our forests and our nature. Emblematic of that is the elephant. The elephant is extremely emblematic of our respect to nature and wildlife. But with growing human populations and with fragmentation of the elephant habitat, now I'll repeat that, with growing human populations and fragmentation of the elephant habitat, human and elephant conflict is absolutely inevitable, which means that there is conflict between humans and elephants because we go into their lands, we build roads across their forests, and they're not able to move around. Their habitats are being fragmented, and they're large animals. They need to move around. So there is conflict. And in this conflict, it's almost like a warlike situation between the elephants and humans. Now, in these kinds of situations where there is human and elephant conflict, sometimes our amazing forest department, and I've got the utmost respect for our forest department in India because they are some of the most passionate people who are working for our government and for our people. A big round of applause to our forest department. Now, sometimes because of this human and elephant conflict, our forest department has to make the very painful decision to actually capture and relocate these elephants. Now, obviously, it's much better than shooting down the elephants who are in conflict with humans, and that's what would happen in any other country. But fortunately, we've got some amazing wildlife protection laws in India, so they are not shot down, but at the same time, they are captured and relocated, which seems like a very humane solution. But is that also actually humane? And don't we have to ask ourselves the question that do we have to have this conflict or not? So why don't we just live without conflict with these animals and let them live? So now, here is a song that I've composed called Love Divine, which talks about coexistence or the lack thereof.
Mirror, mirror on the wall of my soul. In your eyes I see all of the whole that you do unto me. You do unto yourself, oh love divine, is the very heart of all of time.
Now, to end, I would like to quote a very famous saying in conservation and environmentalism that I have lived my life by, that at the end of the day, we as humans will only protect things that we love. So at the end of the day, we as humans will only protect things that we love, we will only love things that we understand, and we will only understand things that we are taught. Now I'll just repeat that again. We will only protect things that we love, that's obvious. We will only love things that we understand, and we will only understand things that we are taught. So I have made it my mission to make everyone fall in love with our natural world through my music, so that people will fall in love with the natural world, and through that love, we will learn to conserve and protect just like how we protect our own families. So that is what we all need to do. We need to make everyone fall in love with the natural world and hope that through that love, people protect and they conserve. Now, in doing that, I am a very patriotic Indian. Is somebody over here a patriotic Indian? You can scream if I ask you that question. Is somebody over here a patriotic Indian? Yeah! Fantastic. Okay, I'm a patriotic Indian. I never leave home with my India lapel pin. I love my country. And at the same time, I wanted to make an instrumental version of our national anthem. So while I was making the instrumental version of our national anthem, I had to make a video. And I was wondering what to put in the video. Now, when it comes to patriotic songs and when it comes to versions of the national anthem, who usually appear in the videos? It's celebrities, film stars, politicians, basically humans of our great nation that is India. I wanted to showcase the unsung inhabitants of our country, the unsung citizens of our country, that is the wildlife and nature, because they have existed on our planet and in our country long before any humans ever set foot on our land. So they are actually the true citizens of our country. So I wanted to showcase them and create a lot of awareness to these beautiful, beautiful citizens of India. So now I want to, so basically, as I told you, it's within our culture to protect and conserve. Let us use our patriotism to protect and conserve our beautiful, beautiful natural world so that we have this beautiful world for generations and generations to come. Let us sustain, let us conserve, let us protect. Now, if you would please indulge me, let us rise for the national anthem. And now that I have you all standing, let's take this pledge with me. Repeat after me and repeat as loudly as you can. I pledge to protect my planet. I will learn to coexist with everyone and everything. I will not waste our natural resources. I will work hard each day to make this world a better place for everyone and everything. I will be the change I want to see. Thank you. Here we have our Indian national anthem. Love, conserve, sustain. Thank you so much.
It is said that God made man in his light. And his light is the light of love. His light is the light of knowledge. His light is the light of intelligence. And if light of intelligence flows in love, there happens sustenance, there happens prosperity, there happens preservation, there happens growth. And if the same light is blocked, then there happens the darkness of pain, of suffering, of destruction. Every conflict in this world is created by the lack of the right intelligence, by the lack of sensitivity. And in this fast growing darkness, we have these wonderful beacons of light shining and spreading their light to everyone. And in this session, like in every other session that we had such beautiful people who are shining beacons of light, bringing so much light to all of us. Dinabandhu Sahuji, Colonel Virendra Malikji, and Ricky Cage. We thank three of you for spreading so much light in this world and lighting all our hearts. And we promise to keep this light that you have lit in our hearts shining all through. And we will spread this light to so many more people across this world. Thank you very much for being with us. Hari Om, Shri Krishna.
Chinmaya Vidyalaya, Chennai is celebrating 50 years. Okay. So on October 19th, it is on Vijay Day, we started the school. And we are celebrating the 50 years with Ricky Cage. Please come up. So on October 19th, he would be performing in Chennai Nehru Stadium on Lord Shiva. You would like to say?
Say, yep, I'm very proud to actually perform for this concert. It's going to be one of the, I'm sure it's going to be one of the greatest experiences of my life. And we're calling musicians from all over the world. There are going to be musicians coming in from a total of 8 different countries, including, I mean, all 8 of them being Grammy Award winners just like me. And musician from Ghana, from Vietnam, South Africa, Canada, USA, Australia, and of course India. And yep, it's going to be an amazing event. I hope to see all of you. It's going to be brand new music that I've never played before. This music is being specifically composed for one of the greatest conserver and one of the greatest environmentalists ever in the history of